Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is Interview with a Fire Elemental. Before we get into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support Astral Club, you can certainly do so on Patreon. When you join, you get access to the chat function and direct mail and all kinds of other cool stuff. And if you're interested, all you have to do is go down to the description section and click the link. Next up, private lesson to learn how to astral project. If you'd like a lesson with me, all you have to do is go down to the description section and ask for more information. I also want to mention that I have a new playlist, and that's for folks who like these interviews. It's titled Interviews with Non-Humans. So check it out. You may have missed an episode or two, and that way you can check it out. Okay, so let's get started. My angel guide had told me that the best place to find a fire elemental willing to communicate with me was on a subplane inhabited by them. He gave me the ident and wished me luck. He warned me that while fire elementals weren't hostile per se, they could be rather temperamental, and that I should be on my best diplomatic behavior. Of course, I acted a bit offended. I said I'm always on my best diplomatic behavior. He just gave me a look, and then I went on my way. I blacked out, as I usually do when I travel any kind of distance. As I regained consciousness, I imagined that I felt the warm glow of 1,000 suns pouring forth from an ancient temple that towered over me. It was quite awesome, actually. The entire plane itself shimmered with a heat that definitely wasn't of our physical world. It was a place where fire danced, not just in the fireplace, but in the very fabric of the air. I stood at the entrance, feeling, or at least imagining, it was interesting, I don't know, or imagining that this heat was washing over me. I was kind of curious. I was a little apprehensive too about going inside this very large temple. And I thought, why do I let Astral Club members talk me into this stuff? Anyway, for untold centuries, humans have worshipped, feared, and revered fire elementals. For all that, these creatures have remained distant, their power feared and respected in equal measure. I know they've been called on in the occult history to assist in various magical workings, so this goes way back. They were spirits of flame. They were bound by ancient pacts to the elements, capable of both destruction and creation in a way that no human could fathom. Most believe them to be dangerous, untamable forces of nature. I, however, was about to interview one, at least I hoped I was. I sent out a respectful telepathic invitation for a meeting. Soon, the air rippled like a mirage as a massive fire, bright, shifting, and almost alive, appeared. From the swirling mass of flame, a voice emerged, rich and deep, like the roar of a wildfire. "You are the one who sought an audience," it rumbled, the sound swirling around me like wind before a storm. "Yes," I said, just trying to steady myself. I didn't want to betray my nervousness. "I have come to ask you questions to learn more about who you are and what you are. The world knows little of your kind today." From within this fire, this form of a figure began to materialize, shifting as if the flames themselves were solidifying into a shape. The elemental appeared as a towering being, his body made entirely of flame, but with outlines that suggested both human and something entirely alien. His face was obscured by an ever-shifting mass of fire, but the presence radiated an intelligence far beyond any human. "Few today ever seek to understand us," this fire elemental said, its voice now softer and more contemplative. I'm not like most beings today, I responded. The elemental looked deeply into my soul. I imagined that I felt the heat of his telepathic probe as it burned its way through me. Speak then, and I will answer, said the elemental. I hesitated, unsure where to begin. I had so many questions, but I decided to start with one that weighed most heavily on my mind. As an elemental of flame, what do you feel fire represents? I asked. The elemental's flame seemed to dance more wildly for a moment, as though amused by the question. Fire is life and death, it answered, its voice growing more intense. It is the spark that ignites creation, but it's also the force that consumes all things. We are not bound to a single moment of time. We exist in cycles, birth, destruction, rebirth. Fire is the medium in which we can create and undo in the same breath. I thought about that for a bit. Once upon a time, we used to fight every forest fire that happened. Small ones, big ones, we fought them. And what we found over the years is that the fires got worse and worse and worse. See, what we were doing by interfering, we were interfering with a natural process. What happens is that dead brush, dead trees periodically burn in small fires, clearing the way for more healthy growth. When we humans interfered in this process by putting out every fire that sprang up, that we were allowing all this detritus, all these dead vegetation to pile up, so that when a fire did start, it wasn't a small brush fire, it was a conflagration that caused huge amounts of damage. Eventually, we figured that out. We figured that some of these smaller fires were necessary and that it was part of nature's plan to have healthy forests. So that's what was going on in my head after he was talking about that. But then I said, but isn't fire dangerous? I said, it destroys things and reduces them to ash. How can something so destructive also be a symbol of life? I guess I was kind of testing his own responses to this, because obviously I had my own theories on it. I guess I was kind of playing like the dumb interviewer a little bit. I've seen that happen before in the past and on television, what have you. That, the fire elemental said, is a paradox of existence. The same fire that burns a tree can provide warmth to a family. The same flame that destroys a city can also give birth to new growth in the ashes. Maybe he was sensing my thoughts. That's what I was thinking. Destruction is not evil, nor is creation always pure. We are not simply one or the other. We are all things at once. I paused again, trying to absorb these words. The fire in front of me flickered with an odd rhythm, like a deep primal heartbeat. Tell me, I asked, leaning in, do you ever wish to be free of your flame? To exist beyond fire and destruction? I always like asking these types of questions to see what their thought process is about their existence. The elemental was silent for a long time, and the air grew thick with heat. Finally, it spoke. Freedom, it said slowly, is an illusion. We do not seek to be free of our nature, for our nature is what gives us purpose. We are the pulse of the universe, the spark of change, the fire that will never die. But there are those who misunderstand us, who fear us, who seek to control us. We are not to be tamed, but we are not your enemies either. We simply are. I stood there, absorbing the weight of those words. My mind raced, trying to process the vastness of what I was being told. There was so much more to this being that I could ever understand. So much more than fire itself. Can fire elementals ever change, become something else? I asked, almost to myself. I was kind of wondering out loud. The elemental's flame shimmered with what could only be described as a sigh. Change is constant. Even we evolve, but we do not abandon our essence. We transform, yes, but we remain bound to our core. Are you bound forever then? I ask, sensing a deeper longing in its words. The fire flickered once more, brighter and fiercer this time. We are bound to the flame as much as the flame is bound to us. But all things must eventually pass. Even fire in time will burn out. That is the way of all things, but we will always return. A strange, unsettling peace hung in the air after that statement. I felt as though I had touched something vast, something ancient. Is there anything else you wish the world knew about fire elementals? I asked, sensing that my time was running a bit short. The flame softened as if the elemental was contemplating my question. Understand this. We are not simply forces of destruction or rage. We are not simply tools to be wielded. We are part of the cycle, the eternal dance of life and death. And while you may not understand us, we are always watching, always waiting for the next spark of creation. With that, the fire began to fade, its form dissipating back into the flickering flames that had summoned it. I stood there, feeling like there was heat still all around me. My mind was swirling with the enormity of what I just experienced. The elemental had said nothing more, but I felt as though I had learned everything I needed to know. As I left the temple, I knew one thing for certain. I had glimpsed the true nature of fire, and in doing so, I had touched something far greater than I had ever imagined. If you found that short experience interesting, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds, subscribe if you haven't already. Give me your comments and questions. I know a lot of people have been asking me to contact a fire elemental. At first, I wasn't quite sure how I would do that. It's one thing going into the air, it's another thing going to a body of water, but sometimes, how do you go to a fire? That's why I consulted my angel, and he was able to take me to this particular plane where I was able to have this experience. At any rate, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.